one is the direct query. So in the case of direct query, what happens is so it sends the request. Okay, it will query the data from your data source every time. Every time it query your source system file only. 1 second, let me just delete this. Somehow I saved it. Okay. In the case of direct query mode, okay, this is basically an alternative to your import connectivity mode. Here, when you use this storage mode, it will not, the data will not get stored in a Power BI desktop because it is a direct connection to your source. This is your SQL server. This is your Power BI. When you use the direct connectivity mode, the data will not get stored here locally. Okay, what happens is the Power Query editor generates the SQL query, and then it sends the SQL query to your SQL server, and then the query will get executed here. The output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, the data will be queried from the data. So the data will live the place where it is. Okay, we don't want to import the data locally into our Power BI desktop. Okay, so in the case of direct query, what happens? Only the metadata will get loaded here. What do you mean by metadata? Can someone tell me what is metadata? Metadata is nothing but the table name, column names, and the relationship also. Okay, so this information, it gets loaded in the case of direct query mode. So what are the advantages and disadvantages? So the direct query works only with the specific source system. It will not work with different source system files. Okay, it works with these only some set of source system, like what you see here, the SQL Server, Azure SQL Database, and Data Warehouse, SAP, and only these kind of source system, the direct query will work. What are the advantages of direct query? Since the Power BI fire the query in the place where the data exists, right? Here it doesn't require storage space. It requires very less storage. That too to store only the metadata of the tables, whatever you wanted. Okay, and here the other advantage, you don't have to do the data refresh. Since your query is hitting directly the source table, you don't have to refresh the data. Okay, that is also another advantage of using direct query. And the next one, the disadvantage. What are the disadvantages? You cannot use all DAX functions. All the DAX functions, you cannot use it. You cannot use all the DAX functions. You cannot perform all kind of data transformation. You cannot perform all kind of data transformation. And then the direct query is possible for only the few data sources. So these are the disadvantages. Okay. Now the question is, when can I use the import mode and when can I use the direct query mode? Maximum size of data in the premium license, I don't think so any limit. Okay, and again, you have premium itself, different types out there. So most of the customers, they are using the higher version of the premium license. There are no limitations, I guess. Okay. So here the direct query mode, right? So these we discussed about the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are like you don't have to import the entire data from your source system back to your Power BI system, and you don't need to do data refresh. Okay, and the disadvantages, you cannot use all the DAX functions. You cannot perform the full blown or the complex data transformation. You cannot do it. Okay, and also the other limitation is like, you can work with few source systems. For example, MySQL, the direct query option is not available with MySQL. Okay, so when I say about direct query, right, you need to remember this term. There is something called query folding. What is query folding? This is what your SQL server. This is what your SQL. So this is what your sales database. And here this is your Power BI desktop. Okay. But what you do is, let's say you are using a visual here, the column chart or something like that. So what happens is here, the Power BI will generate a SQL query and then it will submit the SQL query to your SQL Server database itself. Directly, this query will get fired against this table, and then the output of the data will be sent back to this one. This is what direct query. So we also call this a query folding. Okay, it folds the query. Okay, so for example, in this visual, I'm using the x-axis. For example, regions, different regions. Let's say we operate across 4 different regions, and each region we want to see the total sales, sum of sales. So in this case, whatever north, east, west, south. Okay, sum of sales in each region. What is the total sales we made? What is the total sales we made? What is the total sales? That is what we needed. But let's say you have 80 million records out there in your fact table. In that case, what will happen is, if you fire a query, it does the aggregation at the source system itself. The output of your query is just 4 records. Sending the 4 records back to your Power BI desktop will not require too much of network resource, and it will not take much time. That is the whole idea of it. Rather than importing the 80 million data locally here, better you fire the query where the data exists, and then the output of the query, send only the output of the query back to your Power BI report. Right. In that case, it is pretty faster. This is also called as a query folding, but there are limitations with the query folding. Query folding will not happen for any moderate or complex data transformation. For example, if you want to split the data from a column, then the query will not be generated. The query folding will not happen. Okay, there are limitations are there with the query folding. You can perform in simple term in the case of direct query connectivity mode. You cannot perform the complex data transformation. Even the moderate complex also, not only basic data transformation, you can do it. For example, if you want to add an index, it is not possible. Okay. So in that kind of situation, better you can write a stored procedure wherein you can implement all your complex business logic and then invoke the stored procedure from your Power BI desktop. That is what we have seen in the past session, how to invoke a stored procedure from your Power BI desktop. We have seen it. Okay. But there are cases, yes, they are using SSIS, right? SSIS or ADF, Azure Data Factory, they are using it. So in this case of SSN ADF Data Factory, we create the ETL pipeline. And then what we do is all kind of data transformation will be done, right? So if you want to do any kind of data transformation, you can do it because of the limitation with the direct query mode. Okay. And then once the data get pre-processed, that data only will be accessing it from our Power BI desktop. It's something like that. Here you have the ETL part, right? This is your source. This is your source, and this is your ETL, and this is your Power BI desktop. And here they will be using SSIS. Okay, you pull the data, the ETL will be done here. They extract the data from here and then transform the data and then load it here. Okay, then load it to this one. But again, loading is here, right? So usually what they do is the SSIS comes here also, right? You have something called staging area. In the staging area, you use the SSIS tool. This is a ETL tool. You can extract the data from, this is your, let's say you have something else called source system. You extract the data into staging using SSIS. And again, from staging, right, you'll be using SSIS to perform the data transformation, everything. And then what you do is if the customer, they have data warehouse, there they'll store this data here. The pre-processed data, they'll be storing it here already. But again, for your reporting requirement, if you want to perform the complex aggregation by joining multiple dimension tables with fact table, so in that kind of situation, what you do is you either use an SSIS or you will be using the stored procedure at the source system itself because of the limitations. I'll just show you here the limitations. I just go to this place. And I just go to the data model view directly. look here, the dim customer. I just show you one more time. Look here, get data for you to remember, because I have a mix of people here. I just hit this SQL Server connectivity. Okay, direct query. And look here, if you expand this one, you can see the advanced options. Here you can specify the query itself. For example, you want to join multiple tables in your query, you can do it, and you can submit the query itself. So what will happen in this case? The query will be sent to your the SQL Server, and the output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, query the data from the source itself. Okay, and what happens is, that only the output of the query will get loaded here. But instead of using this advanced option, if you use direct query mode, what will happen is, or if you use the import connectivity mode, what will happen is, for example, if I click on OK here, it will display all the tables. The dim customer is available in that sales database. You need to select this that specific table, so that that table will get loaded here. For example, if I expand this here, in this database, what all the tables are there, it will show you. Remember, I have used the import connectivity mode. Okay. And here, if I select the dim category, for example, okay, and you can see all the things. When I hit the load, dim category, I think I did not load it yet previously. I did. Yeah, category. Look here, it got imported. Okay. Just for demonstration purpose, I re-imported it again. Look here, the dim category already, I think I imported. That's the reason why it shows dim category 2. Look here, it's already there, dim category here. Okay, the dim category is a category dimension. It is already there. Okay, this is nothing but a dimension table. I have used an import connectivity mode. How do I know what connectivity mode I have used for which table? You need to keep the cursor next to the table name. You can see that the customer dimension, the storage mode, you can see import connectivity mode. Data refreshed when was the last refresh happened? Okay. And when you hover the cursor for the table which I have used the direct connectivity mode, you can see this thing right on the right side. You can see that direct query and SQL Server database. What is the server in which database this table is available? Marketing database, I have used it. But when you see the table at a glance, right, on top of the table, when you see blue colored one, that is nothing but your direct connectivity mode, direct query mode. And if you don't see anything, this is your import connectivity mode. Maybe it's an Excel file or it can be an RDBMS table. Okay, if you don't see any line on top of the table, that is, there we have used the import connectivity mode. Whereas when you see the blue line on top of these tables, right, this is your direct connectivity mode. Okay, but you cannot convert the imported data into direct query mode. Whereas here, for example, if you expand this one, currently I selected dim customer, you have a properties pane. By default, it would have got collapsed, and you need to click on this to expand this. And if you scroll down here, you will find something called advanced option. If you scroll down here, storage mode. Currently, it is in import mode, and this I've used import, right? Yeah, from import, you cannot switch back to direct query or any other mode. Okay, but when I select the direct query table, direct query connectivity mode, right, or storage mode table, you can switch back from direct query to import or dual mode. Dual is nothing but the composite mode. So you can convert to import. Okay, or you can use it to dwell. Okay, it is a combination of both import as well as the direct query. Got it? So this is what this is how you can switch back the direct query storage to import mode, but import to direct query storage is not possible. Yeah, importantly, for example, if I just go here and okay, I just go to the Power Query Editor. I was talking about the query folding. The sales fact table. One second. This is my own data. Okay. Sales fact is available here. We have something called adventure data that you can use it as part of assignment. Everything is already there. Okay, you don't have to worry. And sales fact, look here. This is what your direct query mode. And in the Power Query Editor, if you go here, for example, if I wanted to rename some column or something like that, simple data transformation we do it. I just say I just rename it as sales amount. So what step that I carried out, I renamed the column from sales to sales amount. Okay, and that thing got captured here. What columns that? These are the columns I previously removed it, and now I just removed the sales to sales. Like actually, what happened, right? I just renamed the sales amount again. I just did things. Okay, because of it shows the same thing here. Or else, let me redo it. 1 second. I'm going to undo this one. Okay, here the column name is sales amount only. What I'll do is I'll just double click on it here. I'll make it sales. Earlier, sales amount to sales amount, I renamed it. That was not the right way of doing it. So the actual column name was sales amount. I renamed it to sales. Okay. And this step or action, what I carried out, got captured under the applied steps pane. Okay. Now, if I keep the cursor over this step and right click on it, you will find something called view native query. When you click on this, it will show the query. So now what happened? I just renaming the column is possible. In that case, what happens? The query folding is happening, which is nothing but it generates the query. This query will be sent to your source system SQL server. Okay. And then what happens is the output of the query will be sent back to your Power BI desktop. Okay, there are a lot of limitations are there with direct query mode when it comes to data transformation and when it comes to DAX functions. For example, if I want to, let's assume that this way, okay. For example, I want to merge these two columns. Yeah, merge column option is available. How can you select more than one column? First, select one column and then hold your control key and then select another column. This is how you can do multi-selection by holding the control key. You can, for example, if I don't hold my control key and if I select it, all the three columns will not get selected. If you want all these three columns to be selected together, you need to hold the control key and then click on it. So now what I do is I just merge. When you right click on it, you will find something called merge columns. I want to merge these two columns. Don't ask me why you are merging. This is just for demo purpose. I'm doing it. Okay. Yes, merging is possible. This step. Now we carried out the merge step, and just beneath the apply steps, you can merge columns. And here you see the first three letters are your the location name, and remaining letters are like your remaining things are right like your city name. Sorry, location key and customer ID. Okay, this is a location key, customer ID. Okay, and now what happens when I keep the cursor for this thing, right? If I, let me do one thing, I just unselect it. If I keep the cursor over here and right click on it, still the query folding is happening because the view native query option is still available. Which means this query will be sent to your source system. It queries the source, the data from the source itself. Okay, I have another requirement. Let's say in your given data set, you have both the location key and then the customer key got stored in a single column. You need to split it. You need to keep the location key separately in a separate column and then customer ID in a separate column. So in that case, what you need to keep the cursor over here, right click on it, and you have something called split option, split column by delimiter. So the delimiter is space. Okay, I just click on OK. Between the location key and the customer key, space is there, right? So look here, it has some limitation. This step results in a query that is not supported in direct query mode. This is not supported in direct query mode. Okay, now what I do is I just go and select this one, change the type, and look here, the view native query got disabled, which means the query folding is not happening for this action. Or for this step, it is not happening because there is a limitation with direct query mode. You cannot do the splitting. Okay, so in this, because of limitations with direct query mode, right? Even for small things, you will get warning message, something like that. You can, this specific step you cannot do it with the direct query. For example, if you want to create an index, that is not possible. That kind of solution, you can go and do all the transformation. For example, if you want to split it, you can use substring also in your SQL query, and what are the columns that you need it, you specify it in the query, or put it in a stored procedure, you can invoke it. But remember one thing very clearly: if the source system table or table size is very huge, very huge, then you can go for direct query mode. Okay, because importing the data will take a lot of time. And again, the Xvelocity engine has to perform the three tasks. One is the converting it from the table out to columnar, and then compress the data and then load the data in memory. It takes a lot of time, with the huge volume of data. First of all, loading the data from your source to your Power BI system itself will take longer time. The volume of the data is very high, then you can go for direct query. The limitations are many, lot of limitations are there. Even you cannot split the values from a column. Okay, renaming a column is fine, but if you wanted to create a new column, custom column or something like that, it will cause some problem. That kind of situation, better you can write a stored procedure at the source system, or you can submit as SQL query directly to your Power BI desktop. Let's say in your SQL query, you are joining 4 to 6 tables. You do single left after join, right after join, and then you do group by having count of star greater than something like that. So that query you can submit it directly from the output of the query will get displayed here. With that, you can do further analysis to overcome this limitations of direct query mode. But when you submit a query via your Power BI desktop, the same thing, the query will be sent directly to your source system. But the same query related transformation you cannot do it. That is what I'm trying to say. Now you understood where to check whether query folding is happening or not. You need to keep the cursor over the steps and then right click on it. And even in this case, splitting the column, it is not happening. And here only it is happening. Merging is possible, whereas split is not possible. Okay. And other limitation, you cannot add index to the table. So you have something called index add column. If you go to the add column ribbon, you'll find the index column. You can add the index column. Why do I need to use the index column? Supposing you don't have any primary key column is available. Primary key column is nothing but the column where you are not supposed to have the duplicate values of your keys. For example, you have product key column. The product key column should not have any duplicates values in it. Okay. And also, right, you don't have any product ID column available here. So in that case, what you are doing is you are going to use the index to create some kind of unique column. The column, kind of a primary key column. With index, you can create it. But most of the cases, you will be having the primary key and foreign key relationship. But there are situations you will have to create the primary key column using index column option only. But that one is not possible with direct query mode. It will throw an error or warning. So with this, you're able to understand what is import mode, what is direct query mode. The difference between these two are we discussed, and the other important difference is if the volume of the data is moderate, then you can go for import data. If the data is very huge, then you can go for direct query. If it is more than 8 million or 10 million records are there in your source system, especially the query which you fire it will return that many number of records, then you can go for direct query. But the limitations are, a lot of limitations are there. Even you can't split the data from a column. In the case of direct query mode, it will throw an error or warning.